Every conversation lately has become a mirror. I think it's because I'm beyond the part of myself that fears being offended or not seen. I know myself too well to forget. I'm beyond the story that the people I love are ever trying to intentionally hurt me. My family's thoughts or comments that offended me in the past weren't always wrong. Maybe it was selfish of me to not call or visit frequently. I can acknowledge that while also acknowledging that my distance was a symptom of my healing. I can accept them fully for who they are while also taking up space just as I am. I've spent nearly a month straight with my family, which is the longest I've spent with them in my adulthood, and the thing that stuck out to me most was seeing all of their bids of love and connection. Growing up, my dad may not have been super verbally or physically affectionate, but I told him I liked his miso soup, and he made it for me every single morning I was there. My grandma may make comments about my appearance, but I catch her sometimes taking in the woman I am with awe. And after all these years of not knowing how to feed me, she made a vegan rendition of her famous beans and kept salad in the house, even though she still doesn't understand my diet at all. And even if we don't have much to say, there's just an undeniable warmth in being together. I felt for the first time like I was wanted there in that space, and I cherished every moment of the mundane familiarity. Felt so much confidence return to me, and like I couldn't possibly unsee all of the love that was present. Hello, my strong, sensitive souls. Thank you for being here. This topic is really important to me, and this will be one of my favorite videos that I ever make just because of how far I've come in being around my family of origin and how many wounds I've released, because as we all know, the first few years of our life are immensely impactful to our psychology, and a lot of our parents were raising us in ways that I don't know, maybe wouldn't be acceptable in this day and age, and there's such a lack of emotional intelligence and education around communication and unconditional love that a lot of people were just kind of guessing what to do, and that's left a lot of imprints and wounds on a lot of us. So it's really up to us at a certain point to release those, deconstruct those, and not continue perpetuating the wounds and the hurt that we may have seen or received at a young age. So let's just get right into it. First of all, I thought this would be really useful, how to stay sane around your family. Step 1, view them as individual folks. Try not to have expectations for who they are, just like you don't want them to have expectations for you. Just see who they are as neutral information. Be curious about why they are the way that they are, and have a little bit of objectivity around it, especially if you know there's some intense stuff in your past. It's like, don't go home expecting a completely changed version of them just because you may have changed. Step 2, bring some sort of offering, bring something that means a lot to you, whether that's your favorite food, a recipe that you like to eat. Enter them into your world in some way, even if it's a song. I sang a lot with my mom this past trip, and she was so open and receptive to it. For my grandparents, I just brought them yummy snacks because they're always feeding me, and so I decided I would feed them. Similarly, bring an activity to do together, something that will help to break the awkwardness of the time spent apart. It's much easier to talk to people when you're both focusing on a task rather than formally sitting directly in front of each other, making eye contact. It's so much more easeful when you're going for a walk or doing some kind of task to feel comfortable taking up space and letting your mind meander into things that are important. And I'm a bit under the weather right now, so hopefully that's not too distracting. Step 4, journal and process frequently. This will be your outlet, your little therapy corner. If you have a telemed therapist, this is ideal, but journaling is so therapeutic, and you can just write out your little thoughts and feel sane in your own little world. And also having an ally around you that sees things the same way you do or a similar way is immensely helpful. I know around certain family members, I don't feel really comfortable being alone for extended periods of time because it's awkward, because we really have nothing to talk about, or because they can be triggering, some of the things that they say. And so it's helpful to have someone who I can look over at and just be like, and feel related to, and not like I'm an alien in this world. So just be aware of who you don't really feel comfortable spending time alone with, and always have a buddy, maybe it's your sister or a friend in your hometown. I find this so helpful, and it's like setting myself up for success, and I just have viewed
how I feel around someone, and then I decided to show up differently, and I know my own unspoken boundaries with that person. Cook your own food while you're home. Cook what has been making your gut and your body feel super energized and light and nourished. I went grocery shopping once a week at Trader Joe's. I got tons of produce and salads. Keep fueling yourself in the ways that do make you feel so good and high vibrational when you're not home. It doesn't have to be that you're entering into a world where all of your resources to feeling good in your body are cut off. Lastly, for simply staying sane, is to find a ritual outside of the house, whether that's a daily walk or I joined a yoga studio. It was $29 for 2 weeks with unlimited classes. Here is the big kahuna, the most important part of this video, I think, is having emotional intelligence. Objectivity is another way I put it, or just having a nuanced mindset and not taking things personally. I mentioned this in the intro that my grandparents would point out things in really blunt ways and would say things that felt so offensive or immature, unnecessary, but they were also true. Like, you never come home to see us. Or my grandpa one time was like, you have a lot of acne on your face. And I'm just like, oh, okay. I felt really sensitive when I was depressed, so everything felt like a personal attack and like, oh, this must be evidence that they literally hate me. But in reality, I feel like older generations are a lot more blunt. They just say things how they are. They don't coddle you as much. It's unnecessary for someone in my family to point out an insecurity or be like, you're super skinny right now. I loathe that, but it can be an opportunity for you to say, is that really necessary? Or I'm not sure what to take away from that. But also just having an awareness that in my experience, I'm like, I know you guys love me and I think that you're just a little awkward and literally don't know what to say to me. And my friends have similar experiences with their family where it's just awkward and it's weird because we're so many years apart, especially my older relatives. And it's like, of course it's going to be a struggle for you to relate to my world that is so vastly different, especially not even having gone to college or living in the same place anymore. It's like, what do we talk about besides family gossip and how my appearance looks, all the most external things? And I just have a lot more understanding about that, and I don't take shit personally. I just remember hearing certain things throughout my trip that would have triggered me, that would have given me so much anxiety back in the day, and instead I was just like, okay, yeah. And for example, if my grandfather commented on my appearance or my acne, I would be like, well, you gave me these jeans, what's up with that? Why'd you give me this acne? And just make it lighter and bring them into a gentler place. If you don't know what to talk about with your family, ask them about their past. My grandpa and I, we'll just sit in silence in the living room, and within 10 minutes we'll catch up. It'll be like, how are you doing? How are your finances? What's going on in your life? I just decided to ask him questions about his life. What was your childhood like? How were your parents growing up? What was something that was normal in your childhood that isn't now? And one of my favorite questions that I asked is, what was your favorite thing to do with grandma when you lived in Venezuela? And he told me the most beautiful story that my grandma was so in love with mangoes, and every single day they would pick mangoes together, and she would spend hours in this mango tree eating these yellow, delicious champagne mangoes, also my favorite. And she loved them so much that she built a wooden plank in between branches so that she could lie there, take naps there, eating this fresh fruit from the tree. And I've never imagined my grandma in this context because she's really religious, and I don't know, I felt really close to her. And you don't know these things unless you ask. My grandfather was raised in such a different time where if women even wore pants, that wasn't allowed, and they were seen as a loose woman. And he told me all these incredible stories, and just really seeing how much has changed in the world in regards to sexism, I can understand so much more why they are the way that they are. Their social norms were drastically different than even just my mother and me, and especially with great-grandparents, it's like they had a completely different set of rules, so everything seems blasphemous to them in some way. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's literally not personal. It's just what you were taught, and I was taught something different. Ask them about their life, and in general, if you don't know what to talk about with your cousins, ask them about their experiences, what their favorite things are, because honestly, I feel like you never really have those conversations with your family. Like, what do you genuinely feel excited to do? What fuels you in life? What makes you happy? What is something you're proud of yourself for overcoming right now? Those are all really good questions. Subcategory of emotional intelligence, setting boundaries, This is really important. You have to know your limits of what you are willing to allow and be brave and vocalize things that do not feel good. So I wrote down an example of how to vocalize something. I notice you make a lot of snide comments about my appearance or lifestyle. If there's something you actually want to talk about in this regard, I'm completely available to have a respectful, open conversation, but what I don't have the space for right now is feeling these judgmental jabs toward me without going to the root of the issues that you seem to have. Do you want to have a conversation about this? Try not to have any expectations for how they will receive that. Just be grounded, mature. When you go home, it's easy to fall into patterns of how you used to be when you were younger because maybe your parents and your family still acts that same way where they're yelling and screaming. Try to have the mindset of seeing them as, without being condescending, children who don't know any better. They're literally just acting how they've been taught and how they've been conditioned to, and you can set the example and show them that there's a different way to be, and you don't have to feed into it even though it's challenging. Try to have them meet you where you're at. Like if someone is screaming at you, just be like, are you done now? Because I'd like to just talk about this. You don't have to scream at me, you know, just being really neutral. Like I'm genuinely just wanting to have a good relationship with you and feel good around you, but you always make me feel bad about myself, and I don't think that I have the space for it anymore. What do you think about this? Even that. So I was able to practice a lot of these things when I went back home because this is my baseline, and I do know the love that's possible for me out in the world. And hopefully you just watching my videos, witnessing my friends and I gives you hope for how you can be in community, in a family sort of situation with people where there's so much love and respect, and you make each other braver and more excited about life and just so open and liberated just by being in each other's presence. Like know that that is possible, and know that you can anchor that into other places. And I kept reminding myself that my parents, I want this kind of love for them, but they've never known this kind of love. They've never seen that. They've never just, I don't know, swam naked in a river with their friends. And so it's like, how can I expect them to embody something that took me years to find and feel safe in? Just keeping that truth in my mind while knowing fully what's possible and how I am held and how I am loved and inherently worthy. It just made me feel like so anchored within my own plane of love within that anything that came my way, there was space around it. Last thing I want to say is that I stayed up with my sisters one night until 2 a.m. talking about things that I never thought that I would talk to them about, like why I went to the mental hospital when I was in high school, why I jumped out of a 3-story building, what that was all about, and how that felt for me having to lie about things so that CPS wouldn't be called. And I never thought that I would really need to talk to my siblings about that. I have healed a lot of it. Like I say it really neutrally and casually because it's just a happening to me at this point, but I did get really emotional when they asked me what I need to feel loved, because I mentioned how when I went to the mental hospital I was sitting in this gurney and I felt so much peace in that moment knowing that I would be somewhere that made me feel safe outside of my house. And they asked me, well, what makes you feel safe? And I just started tearing up so much. Maybe your family might not want to ask you about tough things that you've been through and they just want to avoid triggering you, but if you're available to have hard conversations, maybe you can be the one to initiate them and be like, hey, I'd really love to talk to you about some hard experiences that I had growing up. Are you available for this? I have some things that I'd love to share. As simple as that, and then just being like, remember that one time when this happened, it made me feel this way. And you don't need to villainize people in this story, but just talking about how things made you feel is a really good place to start. Never thought that I would be able to be that vulnerable and intimate with my family, which is crazy because I'm that intimate with everyone, all of my friends. I've never asked my family those questions, and so I was able to, like, what makes you feel most loved? This is actually really important for me to know about you. So those are just some reflections from my recent pilgrimage back home, and I hope that you can implement some of these things, or that maybe some of these stories give you hope, because I have felt like an alien to my family unit for so much of my life, and I realize that that is not a unique or rare experience, and that we can lead by example and we can just continue embodying the love that we believe in no matter where we are.
Hello for me a few days later. I just wanted to say that I've been revisiting a lot of old situations with new energy, with new curiosity, and it feels like the most grounded form of spirituality to me, to give things a second chance, to use my tools, and to feel the effects of my practice of less anxiety, more ease, more questions, and making space for the possibility of love. When I say that I cannot unsee the love in my family that has been always beckoning and always reaching out to me, it literally feels like I was blind before and now I see. And it's simply because my belief system changed about myself. Instead of constantly looking for examples of why I wasn't worthy enough, why I wasn't good enough, why my family should disown me, I was looking for proof that I am so loved and I'm so worthy and I am special to these folks, and that's what I received. You will find whatever you're looking for in this life, so I feel like all of my practice lately has been seeking love and just finding that it is overflowing everywhere. There is so much that our parents didn't pass down to us. Of course, we can remark at the things that we're trying to let go of, that they imprinted us with, but we will never know the things that they left behind, the things that they really tried to do right with us. And just keep that in mind. There are so many unseen battles and struggles and programs that they didn't pass on to us, and if you do not have a close relationship with your family, just know that it is possible to feel safe and held and loved from the roots up by other people in your life, and that if you are truly seeking familial warmth and deep friendships and love, that you can manifest that and create that, bring that closer to yourself simply by being the most authentic version of yourself and doing that out in the world. Because the more honest and vulnerable and intimate you are with yourself, who you are, what you're looking for, what you enjoy, the easier it will be to find friends that match that depth, because it's your resting point and there's no part of you hiding. So yes, I just wanted to vocalize that last thing. Just check your belief system real quick and see if it aligns with the life that you actually want to be living. Thank you so much for being here and doing this work and breathing deep, feeling it all. I cherish you, and I'll see you in a video soon. Bye!